YouTube, what's the deal? It's your girl Jahira, and I am back. Hope everybody is doing well. And y'all, I'm coming at you with some real stuff this time. I gotta dial it down to a serious note. I just received word that jury selection is getting ready to begin in the trial of Brandon McInerney, excuse me. The person accused of murdering Lawrence King. Now, before I get too deeply into this, because I am conflicted about this issue, but this is one of those opportunities that I will be reaching out to the YT community, my YouTube family, to get some opinions on something. Before getting too deeply into it, I know that I need to rewind and remind you of who Larry or Lawrence or Larry King was, and inform you in case you never knew. On April 12th, 2008, Brandon McInerney shot Lawrence King once in the back and once in the head. Brandon McInerney was 14 years old, and Lawrence King, was 15 years old. It was reported that 2 days before the murder took place, Lawrence King, who was openly gay, had asked Brandon to be his Valentine in school. And this is where the conflict somewhat begins, because when we as a society are in a place where the perception of being gay, or the act of being gay, or the idea that someone might think you were gay is so deplorable, so horrific, that in the mind of a 14-year-old boy, the only solution is to kill that person that incited that within you. We are living in very dangerous times. I have a brother whom I love more than life itself, and this brother is gay. And I had an opportunity to see what he went through in high school in terms of the coming out process. Of course, this was in Massachusetts, where gay-straight alliances, and there are a lot of agencies and organizations in place to help ease the transition as, young LGBT people come to terms with their sexuality and or gender identity. But this particular crime took place in Oxnard, California. And I obviously don't know much about the topography of Oxnard or the level of tolerance there is for same-gender loving people. But being as how it's a town I've never heard of, I think that one could surmise that it certainly might not be as tolerant as more city areas. And once again, we're talking about a 15-year-old boy dead at the hands of a 14-year-old boy. This young person accused of this murder, Brandon, has been tried as an adult, or it will be tried as an adult. We haven't actually gone to trial yet. As of right now, as I stated earlier, they're just starting the jury selection process. But he has been charged with first-degree premeditated murder, possession of a firearm, and he has been charged with a hate crime, being as how the school was well aware of Larry's sexuality. It is reported that he came to school oftentimes wearing high-heeled boots, makeup, and feminine jewelry. He was very out. And I'm not sure as to the state of his gender identity, but or whether he identified as female, but for the purposes of this, I will go along with the news, and will say that he was androgynous or gay, and I will continue to use male pronouns to describe him, seeing as how I've been given no alternative names or alternative pronouns by any part of the media. And is it a hate crime? Absolutely. This was done specifically because Larry was gay, and specifically because Larry, a gay young person, made romantic gestures, or at least one romantic gesture, towards this young boy, Brandon. But again, my whole thing in this is that no one is going to win here. It is beyond tragic that a 15-year-old boy lost his life. A 15-year-old boy that was a troubled young person who was living in a, I want to say it was a group home or some form of shelter for abused or exploited children, known as Casa Pacifica. And it's horrific. It's horrible that this child has lost his life. And it's equally as horrible that a 14-year-old kid with, presumably a bright future ahead of him was so messed up about even the thought that someone might presume that he was gay because of his interaction with Larry, that in his mind the only way to resolve this was to shoot Larry in first period English class at the computer table in front of 24 people, once in the back and then once in the head. And these are facts or documents of the case that have been released on various websites. I will post the links to these websites for you. And you can also Wikipedia this. No one is going to benefit. No one is going to win as a result of this occurrence. If this young boy, Brandon, goes to jail for, it's said that, again, if he's convicted, he could end up looking at a minimum of 52 years in prison to life. Then, a 14-year-old boy, I believe he's now 16. Again, this did happen in 2008. That's it. He'll never see a graduation. He'll never see an occupation that could translate into a career. He'll, 52 years. 52 years. That's that. That's the end for him. And if he's not convicted, or if he's found now not guilty or exonerated in any way, then you're sending a message to greater society that you can't express who you are, both in terms of your gender identity and your sexual identity. You can't articulate the kind of person that you'll grow up to be without fear of being murdered. You can't express your love or your desire for another person in your age group, mind you, without living in terror of the potential repercussions. And that's so sad to me. It's so sad because kids, let's be honest, are coming out younger and younger and younger nowadays because the stigma to a certain extent is off, that you can express who you are. Gay society is not a, microcosm in and of itself the way that it was back in the 60s and the 70s. It's permeated into the pop, not that it wasn't always there, but it's let loose in the mainstream. We're seeing it on our televisions, and it's not just cable after 11 p.m. anymore. It's right there. It's in our face. It's in our homes. The world has stood up and taken notice. And so kids that now feel safe expressing themselves in that way, I don't want to see us regress as a society. And I want to see justice brought to the life of this poor, innocent, beautiful young person. But there really isn't any justice at the end of all this, is there? If you have an opinion on it, I would love to hear from it, but it's just, any which way this thing goes, somebody loses. And once again, all of this could have been prevented, not if Larry hadn't asked this boy to be his Valentine or hadn't expressed himself in the manner that he had seen fit, but if we as parents, as educators, as upstanding members of society, were to educate our young people that you will encounter those who are different than you. And those differences don't necessarily always have to be understood, but they must be respected. And somebody dropped the ball in a huge way here. And a life was lost as a result of it. I refuse to be the kind of person who cries on YouTube, but I hope you can feel how deeply something like this affects me. Because we're talking about a child. And I sincerely hope that it affects you too. I will post the links if you'd like to research some more on it yourself. I'd love to hear from anybody that's willing to talk about it. And rest in peace, Lawrence King. And may we somehow find a way to grow from this, even if it just means pulling our children to the side and saying, hey, if you're different, or if someone you know is different, that's all right. One love.